Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope you all are having a great time at TestMuConf. The hard part of AI isn't building it, it's getting anyone to actually use it. That is why we are doing a session on AI in sales operations at a testing conference. I'm Himanshu, Director Demand Generation at TestMu AI, and I'm tuning in from TestMu AI's Noida office, India. It's great to have all of you here, and I see people are joining in from different parts of the world. I see people coming in from New York, Chicago, Lisbon, Portugal. There are many folks from India as well, Pune, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and people from Noida too. Great to have all of you here, and I welcome you all. Before getting into the session, a quick request for all of you. If something lands for you today, please share it on LinkedIn and X. And you can tag us using the hashtag TestMuConf so the rest of the community can follow along. Now, moving on to today's topic, almost every company has run an AI pilot by now, but as we all know, very few get to the point where teams actually get to use it on a Tuesday morning. That's the gap Meenakshi is here for, and she walks us through the five phases of how AI can help in sales operations, from prospect research all the way to the post sales support. I have had a chance to get to know Meenakshi over the last few months, so I'm glad to be introducing her today. Meenakshi Singh is a senior program lead at Google, Google Customer Solutions, with over 25 years of experience building growth programs for startups and Fortune 500s. So please join me in welcoming Meenakshi. Over to you.
It's a pleasure to be here at the TestView conference. I'll just pull up my slides and start sharing my screen. I hope you can see the slides now. So, a very good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you. If we look around this virtual room, I am sure every single enterprise represented here today has run an AI pilot in the last year or two. You've handed out licenses to LLMs, tested automated email drafts, and watched demos promising a boost, sometimes even up to 10x in productivity. But let me share a sobering statistic before I start. From recent market analysis, we have found that while 85% of enterprises launched generative AI sales pilots recently, less than an abysmal 18% have actually scaled them into production revenue workflows and day to day practice. The rest of the industry is stuck in what we call proof of concept purgatory. And you will ask why. It is because we treated AI as an individual productivity hack rather than an end to end operational infrastructure. So today, we see that we are moving past the novelty phase. Over the next 30 minutes, I am going to walk you through how market leading organizations are bridging the gap from sales pilots to practice, transforming fragmented teams into agentic, high velocity ecosystems. Let me bring up my next slide. So let's start by looking at the global reality. McKinsey estimates that generative AI will unlock up to 4.5 trillion in annual enterprise value, with sales and commercial operations driving over a quarter of the impact. So obviously, we are past the hype cycle. With millions of active enterprise users globally, AI has attempted to transition from a lab experiment into daily infrastructure. Think back to the companies that debated whether cloud computing was too risky back in 2010, let's say, and spent the next decade fighting for survival. This is the classic Kodak phenomenon. Imagine you are Kodak, you are the undisputed king of photography, and one of your own engineers hands you the world's first digital camera, way back in late 1970s or 80s. Instead of celebrating, you panic and hide it because You are terrified it will cannibalize your highly profitable film business. That is the Kodak phenomenon, the tragic paradox where one wants to protect the current state so fiercely that one blinds themselves to the future, ultimately allowing competitors to use own inventions to put yourself out of business. And I would dare say that we are at that exact inflection point with agentic AI today. I don't need to reiterate with you and this group that if we are not integrating AI at scale, our competitors already are, and hence it is no longer optional, it is mandatory. Moving my slide and coming here, taking a step back before we look at the specific tools, we need to understand a few things on how can we implement. When Morgan Stanley, for example, rolled out their generative AI, they didn't just drop it onto the desk of 16,000 advisors overnight. They knew that doing so would cause adoption to flatline. Instead, what they did was they followed a strict life cycle, starting small by testing with a closed sandbox of just 300 champion advisors. They evolved the integration based solely on that real time seller feedback, and only when it was seamless did they adopt it globally as a standard. So you don't just buy AI and turn it on, you must start, test, evolve, and adopt. Uh, so start by incubating narrow pilots for high friction workflows. Don't start with the final or the last negotiation. Start with the busy work, the start work, and then test in a sandbox environment with your champion sellers to measure actual ROI. Evolve and integrate these refined tools directly into native CRM and workflows. If a seller has to operate a separate tab and open it, the learning is here that adoption dies very quickly. And finally, adopt and standardize across regions globally as a mandatory operating procedure. With that, moving on. So, what is the core business problem that this solves? Let's look at the financial math for the sales specific use case. Benchmark data shows us that sellers spend roughly, and you wouldn't have been able to guess this number, only 30% of their time actually selling. And that leaves the vast majority of their day locked in non revenue generating tasks. So here you can see that they and we are paying a massive administrative tax. Constant administrative research and manual data entry are heavily consuming valuable operational and sales capacity and thereby also impacting the team morale. Sellers in drowning in data, but they are staffed for actual and actionable insights. The goal of sales AI isn't to talk to the client for us, it is to remove the 70% of the administrative burden so that we can spend our time actually selling. AI acts as the smart bridge, the connective tissue across the various databases, CRMs, email networks, and all that you have to automatically handle that busy work and sync critical pipeline data. So here, what is the learning? The learning here is that disconnected AI tools create workflow silos, but unified agentic workflows create exponential value. Take a look at this comprehensive end-to-end framework spanning from preparation to ongoing support. So we break this transformation into 5 distinct phases: prepare, present, pitch, persist, and resolve. This complete cycle represents the shift from manual friction, which we spoke about, to a highly integrated, autonomous, AI driven organization. And let us break this down exactly, understand how each phase operates and can benefit from pilot to practice. So, phase one, as you can see, and everybody knows, is about preparation. Market research shows that modern enterprise B2B buyers are nearly 70% through their purchase decision, even before they ever speak to a sales rep. And showing up and asking basic discovery questions, and especially repeatedly, destroys credibility instantly. And I've seen that in my line of work as well. Currently, what we see is that there is a high manual overload, and with what happens is that the reps and the sellers spend hours manually reading the CRM notes, scouring the market reports, both internally and externally, and we see that prep time is killing capacity. So instead of manual scraping, several tools, and to name a few, like in the market, like Zoom Info Copilot, Tension, many tools integrate directly with the calendar to synthesize real time data and automatically deliver a one page exec brief on buyer intent right before you join the call. Let me share that whenever I would ask my team for a meeting with clients, firstly there'll be fewer takers because it would involve a lot of prep. But the brave souls would spend hours and hours leveraging all the data to make a manual yet comprehensive pre-read or a brief. Now they use the external and internal tools available, and it takes only a few minutes to generate a detailed brief to the level that I would expect. And most of the time, I'm able to do it myself also. So my popularity has thus increased because of their reduced workload. And the ideal state is what we call a zero click prep. And if I have a meeting in 10 minutes and the AI can autonomously hand me a synthesized one page executive brief on buyer intent, now that is actual actionable intelligence, and that would be the utopian state. And so, what happens in the next phase? What happens in the next phase? In phase two, we enter the meeting. And we've all seen this happen. A rep is halfway through the presentation or a standard pitch, and the client suddenly says, our budget was cut by 30%. And how does that change the rollout? How does that impact the metrics? And the rep freezes because that action has not been put in the scenario, and they follow up or they promise to follow up next week or after a few days, and the deal loses momentum. During the pitch, generic static slide decks nowadays fail to adapt to client questions and fail to inspire. There are many platforms which are using AI to change this, be it HighSpot, Gamma, Beautiful.ai, etc. The ideal state which we envision is live, adaptive, collateral. If that client changes budget mid meeting, the AI should recalculate the ROI models instantly on the screen based on the live feedback. And hence, what you end up doing is you turn a rigid presentation into a collaborative dynamic solution, and you do not have to come back after a lag. There is the next phase, of course, the phase of coaching. Now, coming to this phase, coaching is the absolute hardest thing to scale. And I say that from experience as an external certified ICF coach. The current challenge is that managers provide inconsistent coaching, perhaps because they are only shadowing about 1% of live calls because of bandwidth issues. Um, and This reminds me of a time when I used to manage customer experience and contact center across emerging markets of Asia and Africa for an MNC bank. And we used to have the concept called call barging, where supervisors could barge into a real call, live call for assessment and feedback for the rep. And needless to say, it was one of the most stressful um, times for the rep, and 100% coverage wasn't even possible. Things have changed much since then. There are many enabling solutions like �W𝐞𝐞𝐬𝐢, Poised, Outbound AI, etc., which analyze and feedback now every interaction. They provide continuous objective coaching and real-time on-screen battle cards also if you need. You can have both. You can have real-time as well as offline feedback with coaching prompts and also post-mortem details which the rep and the manager can discuss and build a improvement path for going forward. Phase 4, the post-pitch phase. Now the call has ended, and this is the exact moment where data historically goes to die because, simply put, sellers hate admin work. And the current state relies on manual spreadsheet stitching and highly subjective pipeline forecasting. In fact, we know that up to 40% of CRM pipeline data in a typical organization is either outdated or inaccurate due to manual entry fatigue. Here and now, we are moving to the invisible CRM. So, uh, several tools which listen to the pitch, draft the notes, map the data directly to your CRM fields. They handle 90% of the manual entry, requiring just a one click human verification before the seller moves on to the next deal. And finally, we have the deal signed, let's say, but waiting for days for query ticket resolution can destroy client trust. A 48-hour wait time for internal human troubleshooting on a technical issue is a massive challenge which we face currently. And it won't be an exaggeration to say it is one of the fastest ways to spike your churn rate. The fix is with AI resolution solutions. Many like Zendesk, Forethought, Intercom um, are available. These are next gen agentic bots, and they just don't read the FAQs. They take action directly in your systems. The ideal utopian state is handling 80% of tier 1 and tier 2 technical troubleshooting autonomously. By resolving this technical friction instantly, you can free up human reps to handle only relationship critical escalations and strategic upsells. But all of this is good. I want to summarize with a caveat. Um, we have mapped an incredible amount of automation today across various industries and functions. And as leaders, you can be tempted to ask if human enterprise seller is becoming obsolete. But I would like to bring forth the caveat that AI is not here to replace the seller. In a world which is flooded with automated noise, genuine human trust is more valuable than ever. So, AI handles the data, the prep, the reporting, but humans handle the trust, the empathy, the strategy. So, the future belongs to the hybrid enterprise with AI as our teammate. The sellers who adopt this teammate will replace the sellers who don't. So, my call to you would be stop running disconnected pilots. Build your agentic practice today from pilots to practice. And thank you. That was my time with you. Pleasure to be here at the TestView conference.